One thing that not a lot of people talk about is how owning certain cars affects how certain people interact with you. And whether you like it or not, it really affects the assumptions they've made about you depending on the car that you've shown up in. Different cars open different doors. So I'm not talking about having better or worse cars. And I'm definitely not flexing the, ooh, I've had such great cars. It's more understanding how the public's perception works based on these cars, and then what to do with it once that door opens. When I owned the BMWs, especially the M5s, most conversations with people revolved around horsepower, 0 to 60 times, and what cars I've raced or beat. And if I went to a Cars and Coffee, the interactions were more about what modifications I had planned or have already done. Did they add horsepower or performance that was noticeable so they could do them to theirs if I felt like they were good ones. Everyone was nice. It didn't really matter what cars you were into, if they were basically at the same level with Audis and Mercedes and stuff like that. Everything was always centered around racing and horsepower and performance conversations. So we were all judging ourselves against the other ones and what they had done to make their car faster or look better. The only exception to this was the Alpina, and that's because it was more of a luxury BMW. Nobody really asked about racing or speed. They did ask about horsepower, and then just mostly commented on how nice and luxurious it was, especially for a BMW. And the conversations were more along the lines of it felt like a Bentley. And that told me something right away when they started talking to me in a different way. Lamborghini was a totally different room. Kids wanted you to rev it, and adults asked if it was comfortable and easy to drive. But one thing was for sure, everyone noticed it. With the Gallardo, the conversation was always about how it was a gated manual and how fun that must be, and then how small the interior was because, well, I'm 6'5", and I didn't really fit in it. With the Aventador, it was more about how good it sounded and how wide and low the car was, and also about how hard they are to drive. You get way more attention, but you also get way more of those assumptions. Early on, it felt like people started treating me more like a rich snob instead of just another car guy. That really does change though, depending on where you live. Southeast Florida, it's totally different, but the perception is still real. McLaren was the biggest shift. And when I got the 600 LT, it was a way nicer car and felt different than anything I'd owned before it. And people were just really curious about how it drove and just all the little nuances of it. Then I got the 720 and the perception shifted again. I think because more people knew what it was. And that's where I started to get the questions about what do you do for a living, and kind of jealousy from them was more noticeable about how they would hate on it and me because of what I drove. And some of those assumptions people were starting to talk about were if I was selling courses as some sort of influencer, which is a big thing here in South Florida. And other people were just assuming I inherited the money and I could just spend it on whatever I want, because at the time, McLaren had not a great reputation for being reliable. But what also started happening was more successful people started to come up to me and talk about business over horsepower and modifications and that kind of stuff. We bonded over the car, but really talked about what kind of business we owned or how we made the money to afford the car. When the 765 came along, the room changed yet again. Collectors actually started coming up to me and holding conversations with me instead of just a quick, nice car and moving on. We started to shift from even just business to investments or long-term plans for future wealth building or car purchases. It was a different level of person that was not only willing to talk to me, but willing to keep the conversation going. And the car became the signal for them to know that I was probably someone that was more worth talking to than the sea of 720 owners that were around at the same time where I live. The 765 gave me credibility before I even spoke. And whether we like it or not, that's how these rooms work. Aston Martin's a completely different crowd. They're way less worried about the MSRP or the horsepower ratings or 0 to 60 times. They're more about comfort and style. And honestly, really, where are you going to take the car to enjoy it versus how are you going to race it? They don't ask about this track, they ask about road trips. It's almost like a quieter confidence of not how did you afford it or what can you do to make it sound better or go faster. It's more about how are you going to enjoy this great thing you have. It's more like experience over numbers. The DBX has surprised me the most. I think it's because not as many people know about it and they're just curious and they actually don't have any preconceived judgments about me when I step out. So like I said, the different cars open different rooms, but what you know and how you interact with the people in those rooms determines whether you belong. The car doesn't make you better. It just simply opens the door to give you a chance at proving you belong. And after that, it's all on you. So there's not a secret hack. You can't over leverage yourself and get into these rooms and then expect magically that people are going to respect you and work with you. You have to be humble. You have to be respectful. And you have to have knowledge that proves you belong in this room. And I'm not saying you have to be the smartest person in the room, but the way that you prove your value in there, even if you're a little bit less knowledgeable than the other people in the room, is you be honest and you ask questions. And when the people answer, you don't talk, you just listen. And that's the easy, simple way to survive in these rooms is don't BS, because they will figure you out real quick and then they won't want to interact with you anymore. And then you've over leveraged yourself to get into a position to be in this room that you can't do anything about because you've embarrassed yourself and they don't want to be around you anymore. So driving the Valhalla on track at that event showed me two things. One, I want to be in that room more. And two, I am not there yet, which means there's still work to be done. Cars don't define you, but they do show you what's possible. Welcome to Buster's Garage.